Hello and welcome to the Walking Talking topic on averages, question number 2 with me, Mr. Barton. Right, what have we got here? When visiting a hat shop, customers had the circumference of their head measured. The table shows the results for customers who had bought a hat during December. Now the first thing that's setting off an alarm bell in my head here is these things. We've got 50 to 54. We've got group data. Now crucially that means we don't know the individual data points. If you've done question 1 you'll notice we had data in a table but we knew each of the pieces of data. This time we don't, so we've got a bit of a problem. So these 12 customers, we've no idea what the circumference of their head was. All we know is it was somewhere between 50 and 54. So the best thing we can do, and it's not perfect, but the best thing we can do is assume that the circumference of the heads of each of these 12 customers was somewhere slap bang in the middle. And then hopefully there'll be enough people whose actual circumference was below that and above that to kind of average it out. So that's why we're going to create ourselves here a bit of a midpoint column. So I've got a little midpoint column here, and I've got to work out my midpoints of each of these. So between 50 and 54, I think 52 is slap bang in the middle for that. Now, a few of my students have a few different ways of working out what the midpoint is. Some like to say, well, there's a difference of 4 between 50 and 54. Half of that is 2, and then add that onto the lower bit. So half of 4 is 2, 50 plus 2 is 52. And it works for all of them like that. So if you've got 54 and 58, that's got a difference of 4 as well. So if I add 2 onto 54, I get 56. And so on, and this continues, so I get a bit of a 60, and I get a bit of a 64. Now, once you've got a midpoint, the question turns into one exactly like we did before. We've got a midpoint, we've got the number of customers, so we need, to get an estimate of the mean, we're going to need a sense of the total circumference of all these customers. So I'm going to get myself a little midpoint times frequency column, midpoint times frequency, and for this I'm going to reach for my trusty calculator again. So I've got 12 customers, and on average I reckon that their circumference is about 52, so their total circumference of those 12 customers is 5 lots of 52, which I reckon is 624. And I do the same with this, 32 times by 56, that's going to get me 1792. I'm getting a bit of 14 times 60, which is coming out as 840, and I'm getting 2 times 64, which is coming out as 128. And once again, because it's the mean, I'm going to need the total of all those. So let's add them up. 624 plus 1792 plus 840 plus 128. And I reckon I'm getting 3,384. Now a little tip for you here, you've done a fair bit of work to get to that stage, so it's worth just quickly banging those into the calculator again. 128, 840, 1792 plus 624. Cross your fingers, hope you get the same. You do, so it's looking good. Now once again I'm going to pause here like I did in the previous video and just think, what do I expect my mean to be? Well, if my lowest circumference is 50 and my highest is 66, I better hope my answer's somewhere in the middle there. So when I get my 3384 and I'm looking for something to divide it by, in the back of my head I'm thinking that answer better be between 50 and 66. Now I'm not going to divide it by 1, 2, 3, 4 because there are 4 rows, because that's a load of nonsense. I've got to divide it by the total number of customers. So I'm going to need a grand total for that. Again, let's turn to the calculator. 12 plus 32 plus 14 plus 2. That's giving me a grand total of 60 customers. So I've got 60 customers. In total their circumference is 3,384. So to work out the mean, I'm going to do 3,384 and I'm going to divide it by my 60 customers. I'm going to hope I get something between 50 and 66, and I get 56.4 centimeters. I reckon that's about right. So there's 4 marks. 4 marks for doing that. That's not bad at all. Now, the way GCSEs are going these days, they tend to tee you up with something nice like that and then try and mess you up with something a bit nastier. Let's have a read of it and see if we can get our head around it. The hat shop sells 4 different sizes of hats. The conversion table from head circumference to hat size is shown below. Okay? A salesman puts an order in for new stock. The salesman's order form shows that about half the hats ordered are size 2. But the owner of the shop isn't happy with this. He says the order should show that about a quarter of the hats are size 2. Who's more likely to be right? Now I'll tell you this, if you just write down the shop owner or the salesman, you're getting a big fat 0 even if you're right. Because of this, you must give a reason for your answer. So let's have a look. Hat size 1 are any hats that are between 50 and 54. Well, according to this, that's 12 customers. So I'm going to put a little 12 there. 54 to 58 is hat size 2, that's 32 customers. 58 to 62, that's 14, and 62 to 66, that's 2. Now the salesman's claiming that about half the hats are size 2, and the owner is claiming about a quarter of the hats are size 2, so it seems to be size 2 that's the important one. So there are 32 customers who've ordered a size 2 hat. We know from our previous question that there are 60 customers in total. So 32 over 60 is about the same as 30 over 60, which is equal to a half. So I would be reckoning that because the salesman showed that about half the hats ordered a size 2, I'm going to be saying there are about 1/2 size 2, and you can see from my work in there where I've got the half from, and I'm going to put therefore the salesman is correct. Now you'll write that a lot neater than me, but hopefully both of us will get ourselves 2 very handy marks.